What if the most devastating weapon in human history wasn't a bomb, a chemical virus, or a steel blade, but a hidden mathematical equation? An equation so fiercely protected, so terrifyingly efficient, and so completely cold-blooded that it erased 40 million human beings from the face of the earth without leaving a trace of its true origin? In the frozen spring of March 1221, the richest, most impenetrable fortress city in Central Asia, Merv, fell to its knees in just a matter of days. The invaders didn't bring massive wooden siege towers, nor did they possess advanced European steel armor or heavy weaponry. Yet, they slaughtered over 1 million people with the cold, calculated precision of a modern computer program, executing an entire population with an efficiency that defies ancient history. Mainstream history books have lied to you for centuries by claiming that Genghis Khan conquered the known world through mindless, chaotic brutality and lucky timing. They painted his men as wild, uneducated barbarians who just rode fast, lived in tents, and killed blindly because they knew nothing else. But they were completely wrong, and that narrative was created by terrified empires to hide their own tactical embarrassment. Behind the rising smoke, the rivers of blood, and the mountain of ash lay a terrifyingly advanced, top-secret mathematical algorithm. A secret geometry of war allowed a scattered group of illiterate nomads to outthink, outpace, and utterly annihilate the greatest, most sophisticated civilizations on Earth. You are about to uncover the dark mathematics of the Mongol Empire, a secret history of numbers that they never wanted you to calculate, and it all begins with how they programmed human flesh. To truly understand this secret, we have to look completely past the edge of the sword and look directly at the digital logic of the numbers. In the early 13th century, every major army on Earth operated on a chaotic, emotional tribal system where soldiers fought only for their local lords, their immediate cousins, or their regional dukes. If a duke panicked and fled the battlefield, an entire wing of the army collapsed instantly, making medieval warfare highly unpredictable, uncalculable, and prone to sudden emotional panic. Genghis Khan saw this critical flaw in human nature and completely deleted it from his ranks to build something the world had never seen. He rewrote the human software of war using a strict, absolute decimal military system, stripping men of their tribal names, breaking up their families, and assigning them to rigid, mathematically locked units based entirely on the power of 10. The fundamental cell of this system was the Arban, consisting of exactly 10 men who lived together, trained together, and died together, forming an unbreakable bond. 10 Arbans combined to form a Jagun, which was a compact company of exactly 100 men. Next, 10 Jaguns created a Mingghan, a highly disciplined regiment of 1,000 warriors who moved as a single organism. Finally, 10 Mingghans locked together to create the ultimate weapon of conquest, a Tumen, which was a massive, independent division of 10,000 men. This wasn't just a basic hierarchy for payroll, it was the world's first decentralized human supercomputer. In standard medieval warfare, sending a tactical order across a massive battlefield took hours, often resulting in total miscommunication, delayed reactions, and absolute disaster. But the Mongol decimal system allowed complex operational orders to be executed across vast distances in mere seconds. If a Tumen commander was suddenly killed by an arrow, the algorithm didn't crash or stutter. Instantly, the highest-ranking Mingghan leader stepped into his place without any panic, voting, or delay. Every single Mongol unit down to the basic Arban could operate completely independently, calculating their own local tactics while staying flawlessly synced with the grand, overarching strategy. Without a single piece of paper, Genghis Khan had built a military machine driven by pure, unstoppable logic. However, structure means absolutely nothing without speed, and in military history, the ultimate bottleneck for any conqueror is always logistics. The great Roman and Persian empires were slow, heavy beasts whose massive armies could only march 15 to 20 miles a day because they were dragged down by miles of heavy supply wagons, food carts, women, and slow cooks. The Mongols, by contrast, regularly marched 80 to 100 miles a day through freezing deserts, flooded rivers, and rugged mountains. In the 13th century, this kind of reality-bending speed was psychologically shattering to their enemies, acting as the medieval equivalent of a modern supersonic blitzkrieg. It felt like sorcery to those who witnessed it, as if the Mongols could teleport across maps. But in reality, it was solved by a brilliant logistical equation known as the 1-to-5 horse ratio. Every single Mongol warrior traveled with a string of up to 5 horses at all times. When one horse grew tired, the rider would leap from one saddle to the next while moving at a full gallop, allowing the exhausted horse to rest and graze freely without slowing down the army's advance for even a single minute. Managing an army of 100,000 Mongol warriors meant calculating how to sustain 500,000 horses simultaneously. To any standard general of the era, this was an absolute mathematical nightmare that would cause immediate starvation, logistics collapse, and surrender. The Mongols bypassed this entire problem by calculating the exact carrying capacity of the natural environment, timing their massive invasions perfectly with the seasonal growth of grass across continents. Their supply chain was the earth itself. If they ran out of grass in barren, icy deserts, the math adapted instantly to survive. Every warrior knew exactly how to make a tiny incision in a horse's vein to drink a small, calculated amount of its blood for pure nutrition, closing the wound safely without harming the animal. This zero-waste, self-sustaining kinetic formula made them completely free from slow supply lines and utterly untouchable by any empire. The most brilliant use of their mathematics, however, was played out directly inside the enemy's mind through a series of grand illusions. The Mongols were masters of psychological math fraud because they knew human psychology is entirely ruled by perception and fear of the unknown. When a Mongol force approached a heavily fortified city, they were often severely outnumbered by the defending garrison waiting behind high walls. To fix this mathematical deficit, Genghis Khan would command every single soldier to light not one, but 5 separate campfires scattered across the hills at night. When the terrified guards looked out from their high city walls into the pitch darkness, their brains frantically calculated the flickering lights. They didn't see 10,000 men, they saw a ghost army of 50,000 warriors waiting to tear them apart. Before a single arrow was ever shot, the Dushman's morale was completely broken by a simple mathematical illusion that amplified their dread. They even applied complex herding geometry, which were ancient techniques they used to corral wild animals on the open steppes, directly onto human populations. During major battles, they would deploy a famous tactic known as the feigned retreat, attacking at precise geometric angles and then suddenly breaking formation to pretend to flee in total, cowardly panic. The enemy, thinking they had easily won, would break their own defensive lines to give chase. But the Mongols were leading them into a perfectly calculated trap. They would encircle the pursuing enemy in a massive, sweeping movement, creating a closed killing pocket where hidden archers had already calculated the exact angles, wind resistance, and distance to rain down absolute, inescapable death. No empire in human history ever conquered more contiguous land than the Mongol Empire. But their true legacy isn't just written in the ashes of the cities they destroyed or the legends of their brutality. It is written in the invisible codes of strategy, discipline, and calculation. Genghis Khan proved to the ancient world a truth that remains absolute to this day. Wars are not won by the heaviest armor or the loudest shouts. They are won by the cold, calculated execution of a superior system. The next time you look at a map of the world, remember that its borders weren't just drawn with blood, they were calculated by a secret math that shook the universe. If this hidden side of history blew your mind, hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts on the Mongol strategy, and subscribe, because our next deep dive uncovers a historical secret that is even more terrifying. See you in the next documentary.